Good morning. So today we are going to learn about geomorphic features of India. So what are the various physical feature and geomorphic features which we have in India? We are going to learn. The main objective of learning this lesson plan is that where what are the strategic land features which is providing us such rich biodiversity and vegetation and possible climatic condition in our country. So we are going to take up one by one. All right. So starting from north, coming to the the Great Plains, to the central plateaus, and the Ghat section, the two eastern and western Ghat section, and the desertic region of our country. Okay, so we are going to cover the entire thing, and the aim and objective is that because of these physical features, there are enormous number of possibilities of natural resources which we get in our country. Okay, so India is a vast country with varied landforms. So we have a varied forms of landforms. In fact, we can call all kind of landforms we can find in our country. So our country has a particularly all major physical features of Earth, that is mountains, plains, desert, plateaus, islands. So India is a large landmass formed during geological period which has an influence uh, her into in a relief features, like for example the rising of the Himalayas. Besides the geological formation, a number of processes such as weathering, erosion and deposition have created and modified relief feature it presents from. Okay, so we have learned various forms of weathering and erosional landforms that we have in the worldwide as well as in our country. Okay, so all these features are only possible because of the physical possibility that has come up because of the plate movements. Now plate tectonic movements are the results of building up of stress within the plates and the continental rock above, leading to folding, faulting and volcanic activities. So we have, because of the plate movements, we have foldings and faultings on the geological surfaces and also volcanic activities. Now the plate boundaries, basically there are three types of plate boundaries, that is transverse plate boundary, converged plate boundaries and divergent plate boundaries. We know that we have already learned, although I'm going to just revise it so that the things are fresh while we are studying about the various relief features in our country. Now the transverse plate boundaries is the event of two plates coming together. They may either collide or crumble, or any of the sides may go under each other. Okay, so at the time they may move horizontally past each other and form a transverse plate boundary. So when the two plates, they move in a two opposite direction, like one is moving forward, the one other one is moving backward, so they are moving parallel to each other. And these movement this so, parallel movement of two plates on an opposite direction are called transverse plate boundaries. Now the convergent plate boundaries are the plate boundaries when the two boundaries they collide with each other. So either they abduct on over one plate, or they subduct over one plate. So abduction is when one plate is going over another plate, and subduction is when the other plate is going under the other the abducted plate. Okay, so these on the converged plate boundaries, on the margin of the converged plate boundaries, we find volcanoes. The majority of volcanoes are on the convergent plate boundaries. There are some volcanoes on the divergent plate boundaries. They are the fissure types of volcanic eruptions on these types of plate boundaries. Okay, now, the divergent plate boundaries, again, the divergent plate boundaries is when the two plates are moving apart. All right. So, there is a one continental plate boundary here, one another continental plate boundary is here. So, when they are moving apart and they create a fissure between these two, and lets the volcanic lava magma come out of the out into the onto the surface is a example of a divergent plate boundaries. Now, plate movement of these plates have changed the position and the size of the continent over millions of years. So, Earth is the plates, the continent size and the shape are constantly changing over millions of years. So, there was a time when our world had a huge landmass which was called Pangea. Okay, slowly because of these plate movements, they started disintegrating and going into places like what we have today's American continents, African continent, and Eurasian continent. So these are all because of the movement of the plates, and these plates are constantly moving. So the change in these plate movements can seen over the millions of years. So in a geological time scale, we can see the change in these plate movements. Okay, so the oldest landforms in our country is the peninsular part. The peninsular part is the oldest landform of our country and was a part of a Gondwana land. Okay, so the Gondwana land included the southern part of India, then Australia, South Africa, and South America. As they started because of the plate boundary movement, as they started disintegrating, these plates started there was a because of the convection current on under the plate boundaries, they started disintegrating and started forming Indo-Australian plate. So after being separated from Gondwana land, this Indo-Australian plate moved toward northwards. Okay, northwards towards the Eurasian plate. Now, the northward drift resulted in the collision of the plates with the much larger Eurasian plate. So, we had a bigger plate boundary, that was a Eurasian plate. So, this Indo Australian plate started moving northwards towards the Eurasian plate. Eurasian plate means European plate and Asian plate together makes an Eurasian plate. Now, due to this collision, the sedimentary rocks which were accumulated in the geosyncline known as the Tethys. There was a sea. There was a shallow sea or a water body, which was known as Tethys, was a accumulation of a soft sedimentary rocks that was also called as geosyncline, were folded to form mountains. And then because of this is a convergent plate boundary, they started converging and they started causing pressure from both the plates, from the Eurasian plate as well as from the Indo-Australian plate. They started folded, and this folding of the Tethys Sea gave rise to the Great Himalayas. Okay, the in Western Asia, Southwestern Asia, the mountain system came up as a Himalayas. The Himalayas uplifted out the Tethys Sea. So the Tethys Sea was uplifted in the in this process, and the subsidence of the north flank of the peninsular plateau resulted in the formation of a larger basin. In due course of time, the depression gradually got lifted with the disposition of the sediments. Now, by the river flowing from the mountains in the north and the peninsular plateaus in the south, what is happening is that we have a major physiographic division of India. So, this major physiographic division of India is like Himalayan mountains in the north. Just below the mountains, we have northern plains. Then we start with the central plateau, the southern plateau, that is peninsular plateau. Then we have on the west we have the Great Indian Desert, that is Thar Desert, and we have a, because it is a peninsular plateau. Peninsular part means that all the three sides are open, jetting out into the ocean. So we have a long coastal plains, and we have islands. We have these small islands. There are volcanic islands, and we have coral islands. So we have island systems in two of the coastal system, that is on the Arabian Sea branch and as well as at the Bay of Bengal. Now, this is an Himalaya. So if you see here in this image, sorry, let me remove this one. Okay, if you see in this image, this is an Himalayan range starting from north or western part of a country, that is Jammu and Kashmir territory, and going all along Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. Then it is covering Nepal, the country Nepal, and crossing over Sikkim, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and the entire northeastern sister states. Now, then we have the northern plains here. We have Thar Desert here, Peninsular Plateau region here, and the coastal plain region here. Okay, so physiographic division is like this. So we have 6 physiographic division: the northern Himalayan mountains, the northern plains, peninsular plateau, Indian desert, then coastal plains and islands. Okay, now let's talk about Himalayan mountains. The Himalayas is a geologically younger fold mountains. It's a geologically younger structure compared to the other geological structures that we come across in over the world. So it is a young fold mountain that stretch over northern borders of our country. Okay, so it acts as a natural barrier or natural borders of our country. This mountain range runs in from the west, west east direction, from Indus to Brahmaputra. So from the river, it starts the river, giving a structure, a frame that is starting from Indus to Brahmaputra. So the Himalaya represent the lofty and one of the most rugged mountains. So it is lofty means it is huge, wide, as well as very vivid change in the elevation of the mountain barriers of the world. Now they form one of the highest mountains in the world. So this Himalayan range gives us the highest mountain range in the world, that is the Mount Everest. So they form an arc. It is running in a shape of an arc, starting from the Karakoram range to the entire the uh, below towards the northeastern states, Arunachal Pradesh. The latitudinal variation is very great. Okay, so in the eastern half, and then those of a western half. So what else they form in a arc formation, which covers a distance of about 2,400 kilometers. Their width varies from 400 kilometers in Kashmir to 150 kilometers in Arunachal Pradesh. So it is a wider range in Kashmir Valley, and as you come towards Arunachal Pradesh, it starts narrowing down in breadth. So that becomes about 150 kilometers in Arunachal Pradesh. The latitudinal variation is also great in the eastern half than that of a western half. So in latitude, in if you go towards eastern half of the Himalayas, you will come across higher mountains as compared to that western half of the mountain range. Now, Himalaya consists of 3 parallel ranges in its latitudinal extent. So we are talking about, longitudinal extent. That means when it when we are talking about in context of height, it is it is running in 3 parallel ranges. So the first parallel range, that is the Greater Himalayas. Then we have Lesser Himalayas, and we have Shivalik hill ranges. The northern mountains of India, that is Himalaya, stretches across northern boundary of our country. These are the highest mountains in the world, and they stretch from Jammu and Kashmir in the west to Arunachal Pradesh in the east. Right. So they form a natural boundary between the two nations, that is predominantly India and China. All right, and Himalayan regions passes through many Indian states, that is taking from Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh region, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, Northwest Bengal, Arunachal Pradesh, and northeastern states. All right. Now Himalayas being divided in three parallel ranges with a large valleys in between. So the greater Himalayas, or you can call it Himadri. The greater Himalayas are also known as Himadri. The lesser Himalayas are Himachal, and the lower Himalayas are known as Shivaliks. The mountain decreases in height from the west to east. So Himadri is the highest range of Himalayas. Okay, and it has the highest peak of the world. The lesser Himalayas, that is Himachal, has a is found in between the Himadri, and it is in between Himadri, that is the greater Himalayas, and Shivaliks. The mountain range in these mountains in this range are not very high, though the winter season in these Himachal receives snowfall, and summers are cool and pleasant. So it has a moderate, cool, pleasant climate in the Himachal range of, or lesser Himalayan range. Okay, the greater Himalayas, it is the most continuous range consisting of a lofty peak with large, average height of over 6,000 meters. All right, so it contains all prominent Himalayan peaks like Mount Everest in Nepal, Kanchenjunga, that is in Sikkim, in India, then folds of greater Himalayas are basically asymmetric in formation. So we have learned what are the various types of folds, right? Symmetric, asymmetric, right? Recumbent, then wrapping of the mount folds. We have studied various types of folds. Among that, the greater Himalayas are asymmetric type of folds. Okay, the core of this part of Himalaya is composed of granite. So the core of this Himalayas are basically made of granite. Okay, it has perennial snow. So the throughout the year, this range, the greater Himalayas, are covered with snow. So they are the greater contributors of glaciers in this part. Okay, so we have quite a large number of glaciers in Himadri, or inner Himalayas, or greater Himalayas. All right, it is perennial snow-bound region. The number of glaciers are very high in these ranges. Now, Himachal, or the lesser Himalayas, this range are mainly composed of highly compressed and altered rocks. Okay, so it is composed of very uh, now this is in the between the two ranges, that is the greater Himalayas and the Shivalik. So it is highly compressed, and the rocks are altered or metamorphized. The metamorphic rocks and compressed rocks are found here. So the latitude varies from 3,700 meters to 4,500 meters at varied places, and the average width of the this range is about 50 kilometers. So while Pir Panjal range forms the longest and the most important range, the Dhauladar range and the Mahabharat range are also prominent ones in this region. So the main prominent ranges of the Himachal, or lesser Himalayas, are Pir Panjal. Very important is Pir Panjal, which is covering the northern parts of Punjab and Jammu region. Okay, so the Pir Panjal region forms a longest running range, and Dhauladhar range is also having lot of glaciers also, as well as lot of perennial rivers coming out of these Dhauladhar ranges. Now Mahabharat ranges are also one of those. These three ranges are prominent ranges in the lesser Himalayas. This range consists of famous valley of Kashmir, Kangra, and Kulu. So we must have, we in a day to day life, we keep on hearing about Kashmir Valley, Kangra Valley, and Kulu Valley in Himachal Pradesh. So Kangra and Kulu, these are two valleys which is coming in Himachal Pradesh, and Kashmir Valley in Kashmir provinces, and that is Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. The region is well known for its hill stations and pleasant climate. So it is very famous because of its beautiful hill stations. That is with a cool and constant pleasant climate. Okay, in winters it also faces heavy to light snowfall. Now, lower Himalayas or the Shivaliks, we can say, they extend over a breadth of 10 to 50 kilometers and have an altitude varying between 900 meters to about 1200 or 1100 meters. Now, these ranges are composed of unconsolidated material such as mud, silt, and soft rocks, and is prone to earthquakes and landslides. So this range is predominantly composed of conglomerate type of soil, where you will find the combination of mud, silt, soft rocks, and also and because of this they are very prone, because this is already on a syncline, it is prone to earthquake. And because of the earthquake and the material which is like soft and loose in characteristics, they are also prone to landslides. Landslides could be triggered by earthquake, or heavy rainfall can trigger landslides. All right. So some narrow valleys are found between these shivaliks, that is in Himachal Pradesh. They are called as dunes. Okay. For example, Dehradun is a narrow valley found in the Shivalik ranges. Okay. Now some highest peaks of Himalayas. These are the tables which shows the few highest peaks in Himalayan ranges, starting from Mount Everest. Okay, Kanchenjunga, then Makalu, then you have Dolgori, Nanga Parvat, then Annuparna, Nanda Devi, Khemat, then Namcha Bharwa, and Guru Bharta are some of the highest mountain ranges in a descending order as per their heights, taking from the highest order to the descending orders. The glaciers of Himalayan ranges give rise to many big rivers such as Ganga, Yamuna, Satluj, Indus, and Brahmaputra. So all these perennial rivers are fed by their these glaciers. Like we have Ganga. Where does Ganga start from? Which glacier? Gangotri Glacier. Yamunotri glacier gives water perennial river of Yamuna. Then Satluj, then Indus and Brahmaputra, and so on. We have a wider range of glaciers here. Now, the northern plain has been formed by the interplay of the three major rivers, a river system, namely on the in the west we have Indus, in the middle we have Ganga, and on the eastern side we have Brahmaputra. Along with its tributaries, it forms a very rich fluvial soil, which is very beneficial for agriculture. Now, the deposition of this fuel in a vast basin lying in the foothills of the Himalayas over millions of years formed this fertile plains. It spreads over an area of 7 lakh square kilometers. So it is spread over an area of 7 lakh square kilometers. Okay, the plain being begins about 2400 kilometers long, and 240 kilometers to 320 kilometers wide. So it is a narrow strip, but a longer strip of plain area with a rich fluvial soil, or alluvial soil, which is making which can you can also call cradle of India, because most of the agricultural activities happen in this uh, plains. Okay, so it is a densely populated and physiographic division with a rich soil cover combined with adequate water supply and favorable climate. It is agriculturally a very productive part of our India. So because it is getting a lot of rich soil from the upper reaches of the Himalayas, silts, and the overall deposition of these silt on this plain region has it has made these land possible having a 3 to 4 harvesting season. Okay. Now this is an image of northern plains. The northern plains broadly divided in three sections. That is this in from Indus to Ganga, and from Ganga to Brahmaputra is one. That is Tista River, one of the river here, Tista River, and from Tista to other tributaries of Brahmaputra are part of Brahmaputra plains. So Punjab plains is between this rivers, Indus to Ganga. Okay. Now, then we have Ganga plain starting from here, Ghaggar river to Tista, and Brahmaputra plain from Tista to Brahmaputra. Okay. So this is the, if you see here, I have given the image of, so let me just enlarge this image a little bit. Okay. This is an image. Then we have Ganga and its tributaries, and then we have Brahmaputra at here. Okay. uh, Beyond this we have a Brahmaputra plain or river system, right? Now every year what happens is these rivers systems are inundating and causing floods in these plains, and these floods are beneficial for the recharging the fertility of the soil. But because it is now highly and densely populated region of our country, this flood phenomena is causing a lot of loss of life and property. Okay, so let's talk about now Punjab Plains. The western part of the northern plain is called Punjab Plains. It is formed by the Indus and its tributaries. The large part of its plain lies in the. It has now gone into Pakistan, but we have a few important rivers which is running in India. That is, Chenab and Ravi, which before joining the Indus, it is flowing in India, and then it goes leaves the Indian territory and joins as a tributary of Indus. Then the section of the plain is dominated region. Doaba region is in the Punjab region. Now, if you see here, these are the tributaries of Indus rivers. So Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum, they all starts in Kashmir Valley region and flow and leaves country, and then leaves the Indian territory and joins the Indus River, which is again in the Pakistani region we have Sindhu Basin, that is Sindh Basin. All right. Then we have Ravi, Bias, Satluj. These three rivers are flowing in Punjab region, Punjab territory, and inundating or giving a lot of water to the agriculture field in this region. Then we have a Ghaggar river here, and between these two, from Ghaggar river to Tista river, which we can call it here, from here to here, Tista is here. Okay, Tista river here is a Ganga plain. Okay, so the Great Ganga plain extends between Ghaggar to Tista. Ghaggar river is here, that is somewhere here north of Delhi, in Haryana region, and it is starting from here to going up to Tista in the northern part of the country, that is North Bengal and Sikkim region. We also call it the tributary of one of the tributary of Brahmaputra is Lohit. So from Tista to Lohit we have Brahmaputra plains. Okay, so this explains the extent of Ghaggar and Tista river. The northern state which it covers is Haryana, Delhi, UP, Bihar, parts of Jharkhand, and West Bengal. All right, so it lies on Ghaggar plains. Sorry, Ganga plains. Ganga has a large number of tributaries, like we have Kosi, Bhagirathi, Gomati. Okay, all these are tributaries of Ganga. Even Yamuna becomes a tributary and joins Ganga river. Okay, we have two banks of Ganga river system. We are going to learn about that river system in the river systems of our country. All right. Then Brahmaputra plains, it extends from Teesta river to, I have said, river tributary of Brahmaputra, that is Lohit in Indian territory, that runs in Arunachal Pradesh. Now the northern plains can be again have four regions, narrow belt about 8 to 16 kilometers in breadth, lying parallel to the slope of Shivalik, is called Bhadar. Region. Streams and rivers are emerging and created a wet, swampy, and marshy region known as Terai region. Okay, so we have Bhadar region, Terai region. Then we have Bhangar region. Okay, the floodplains of the river that present in the terrace-like features that is called Bhagar region, and the soil in this region contains a calcareous deposit known as Kankar. Means you have a big particulates of calcareous rocks. Now, based on the relief features in the northern plains, can be divided in four regions. We have learned, that is Bhabar, Terai, and Bhangar and Khadar region. Okay, so Bhavar region, after descending from the mountains, the river deposit pebbles and narrow belt at a narrow belt. So the wide with the width of a belt of this belt ranges from 8 kilometers to 16 kilometers in width. So it runs parallel to the Shivalik range. This region is known as Bhavar. All the streams disappear in this region because it has big pebbles, so it disappears underneath the pebble region. Then we have Terai region towards the south of the Bhabar belt, and in this region the streams reappear and makes a wet, swampy, and marsh land region. So it gives large number of wetlands in the Tarai region. Then we have Bhangar region. The Bhangar is the largest part of northern plains and it composed of the oldest alluvial soil. They lie above the flood plains, and they resemble the terrace-like formations. It has gradual undulating land feature. Gradually, the elevation of this region is coming down. It looks like a terrace-like feature. The soil of this region is locally known as Khankar and is composed of calcareous deposits. Okay, so then we have Khadar region. This is a floodplain formed by younger fluvial deposits that is called as Khadar, and this soil in this region is renewed every year because of the floods. Frequent flooding is renewing and recharging the fertility of this region. So we come across frequent number of floods in Khadar region. Then in the southern part of the country, we come across is a peninsular plateau. Okay, so peninsular plateau is a tableland composed of old crystalline, igneous, and metamorphic rocks. It was formed due to the breaking and drifting of the Gondwana land. So this plateau region is formed due to the breaking of the Gondwana land. The plateau has a broad and shallow valley, okay, around the hills. This plateau consists of three broad divisions. Just a minute. Is it? Three broad divisions, that is let me talk over here. What we have: Central Highland, Deccan Plateau, and what and Chota Nagpur Plateau. Okay, now the Central Highlands, what we have in Central Highland, that is the Deccan Plateau, uh, consisting of, let me show you. This is a physical feature map here, showing Aravalli range, Vindhyachal range, Satpura range, Chota Nagpur Plateau region. This is the Chota Nagpur Plateau region. This is the Deccan Plateau. Okay. Then we have, Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. Central Highlands, the part of the Peninsular Plateau lying in the north of Narmada River, covering a major area of Malwa Plateau, is known as a Central Highland. This extent of the Central Highland is from Vindhyachal Range to Aravali Range. So it is between the Vindhyachal Range to Aravali Range. Vindhyachal Range and Aravali Range. It is the central plateau starts on the Central Highlands. The slope of Central Highland is from southwest to northeast. The slope is gradual from southwest to northeast. It is slightly tilting like this. Okay. Now the river Chambal, Sindh, Betwa, Ken are few of the rivers which are flowing in these regions, and as per the it is flowing as the slope of the plateau. The Central Highlands are wider in the west and has a narrow in the eastern region. Then we have Chota Nagpur Plateau in the eastward extent of the Central Highland. So in the Central Highland, we have Chota Nagpur Plateau, which is in the eastward extent of the Central Highland. The Chota Nagpur Plateau is drained from Damodar River. So the Damodar River system is flowing in the Chota Nagpur Plateau region. Now Deccan Plateau. Deccan Plateau is a triangular mass that lies to the south of the river Narmada. So, when you cross river Narmada, the plateau region is called Deccan region. So, the Deccan Plateau is higher in the west and the slope is gentle in the east. So, we have a steep slope in the western part and a gentle slope in the eastern part of the Deccan Plateau. It is separated by faults from Chota Nagpur Plateau. So it is separated by a single fault line, which is separating the two highlands, that is Chota Nagpur Plateau and Deccan Plateau. Now the Western Ghats. Western Ghats are the two edge, are one of the western edge of the Central Highland or the Southern Plateau region. Okay, so the Western Ghat lies parallel to the western coast. They are continuous and can be crossed through passes only. So these are the continuous, ghat section or highland with a steep, what do you call steep elevation. The Western Ghats are higher than the Eastern Ghats. Their average elevation is from 900 meters to 1600 meters. It is as high as that of Shivalik ranges. So then we have Eastern Ghats. Eastern Ghats stretches from Mahanadi Valley to Nargisi in the south of the country. The Eastern Ghats are discontinuous and has a irregular and disconnected by rivers which is draining in these areas through Bay of Bengal, and an average elevation of these ranges are 600 meters. Now, what is happening here in the Eastern Ghat is that it is a discontinuous flow or range of ghat sections, and it is divided by few river systems, like you have Mahanadi, then you have Krishna, Godavari, and Kaveri rivers, which is breaking the flow of the Eastern Ghats. As the Eastern Ghat has a lower height also, it is as higher for 600 meters. Then we come to the western part of our country, which is the Indian desert. Okay, so the Indian desert lies towards the western margin of the Aravali Hills. So west of the Aravali Hills is the Indian desert. It is an undulating sandy plains covered with sand dunes. This region receives very low rainfall, below as low as 150 millimeter per year. So we have a very arid region here with a very low rainfall. ranging from 150 millimeter annually. This arid climate with low vegetation constitute to the desert of the country, that is the Thar Desert. Indian desert is also known as the Thar Desert. It is the world's seventh largest desert. Okay, this the streams appear during the rainy season, so it has a seasonal river system or drainage system. The streams flow in the rainy season when there is a rainfall, and it flows of water in during the rainy season. Okay, so here in this image, the Great Indian Desert, known as the Thar Desert, is a large, arid region with the northwestern part of India, Indian subcontinent. It with an area of about 2 lakh square kilometers. Uh, it is the seventh largest, not the ninth largest. It is the seventh largest desert in the world. The photos, there are these are the photos of the deserts which we come across in the Thar Desert. So we have this type of vegetation which we find in Thar Desert, and the sand dunes looks like this. We also get oases in the this desertic region. Now there are two types of deserts in India. One is cold desert, the other one is hot desert. Okay, hot desert is in Thar, and cold desert is in Ladakh. Okay, so the largest hot desert in the world, that is being Africa. In Africa, that is the Sahara Desert. It has a very long stretch of desertic region. But we also have get cold desert, that is like Gobi Desert, which is in Mongolia. Is a cold desert. It is in temperate region, and has very low range of temperature, but it is arid, and it has void of vegetation is known as desert. Okay, so this is an image of a hot desert region. So they have thorny vegetation, cactus like vegetation, and the animals which sustain here can sustain themselves without water for many days. Okay, and cold desert, the concept of the common concept of the desert is dry and hot, but it is not. We have cold desert where animal is adapted to cold temperature with less water. So wherever there is less water, you will have cold desert. So camels can go without water for many days. So there are many other animals also, they can go without water for many days in the desertic region. And this is how a cold desert will look, where your vegetation is very less, but the temperature is also low. In the Indian desert lies westward margin of the Aravalli Hills, we know that. And in the north, we have the cold desert, that is we have Ladakh region. Okay, the which has a very scanty vegetation and less rainfall in the region. Now we come across as the coastal plains of our country. So the peninsular plateau is flanked by a stretch of narrow coastal plains running along the Arabian Sea on the west, and Bay of Bengal on the east. So the western coast lies between the Western Ghats and the Arabian Sea, and it is divided into three sections. That is Konkan, comprising of Mumbai and Goa. Then we have Kannada plains, which is Malabar coast. The entire Kannada plains makes a central part of the Malabar coast. Okay, then in the western coastal plains is a wider and level in the running of the as compared to the Bay of Bengal. Bay of Bengal has a wider coastal area as compared to the western plains. All right. Then in the eastern part, that is the Bay of Bengal part, we have Coromandel coast. That is that gives an extensive range of what do you call, deltatic regions. The largest delta in the world, which is like Sundarban Delta, coming from Ganga. Then we have Mahanadi, Krishna, Kaveri. They all forming delta in the eastern coastal region, giving rise to many other land features like saltwater lakes here in Chilka, that is in Orissa. So the coastal plains, the narrow part of the coast is called the Konkan. The central stretch is called the Canada Plains, and the southern stretch is referred to as Malabar Coast, with the plain along the Bay of Bengal, and a wide level of change in these coastal regions comes in. The northern part is referred as the Sikar coast, and the southern part is also known as Coromandel coast. Okay, that is comprising of Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, and Kaveri river system. So here, this is the Konkan plain. Okay, and this is the Malabar plain. Here in the east, you have Coromandel coast, which is wider than that of Konkan and Malabar region. Okay, now there are some facts about these regions. What are they? That Mumbai, that is in Maharashtra, Marmagoa, which is in Goa, Cochin in Kerala, Mangalore in Karnataka, Kawar in Karnataka, Naval and Seva in Maharashtra, and Kandal in Gujarat are the most important ports of these coastal regions. With the eastern coast plains extending from Kanyakumari to Gangetic Plains, and between these, we have what we have. Sorry, turn it off. Okay, so between these areas, this part of plains, this known as the Coromandel coast, and in the north is known as the Utkal coast. So in the northern part of Coromandel is also known as Utkal. Okay, which is comprising of northern part of Odisha and Bengal, and the southern part of Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, and Kaveri forms the Coromandel coast. Okay, then we come to islands. We have two island systems. One is uh, Nicobar Islands. So Lakshadweep Island group of islands are lying close to the Malabar coast of Kerala. This group of island is composed of small coral islands. Earlier they were known as Lakshadweep or Minicoy, or and Manadeep. In 1973, these names were given, and then in 1973, these islands were consolidated together and given one name, that is called Lakshadweep. Lakshadweep, Manakoy, and all were different names of the different islands, and collectively it was consolidated and given the names of 19 and Lakshadweep in 1973. It covers a small area for about 32 square kilometers. Okay, Kavarati is an island that is the administrative headquarters of Lakshadweep. It is a very, it is a dominant, this island is predominant with the tribal people, and these tribal people have a cultural identity with Islamic cultural identity, and they tribal population are constituting to larger cultural factor of these Lakshadweep Islands. So in Lakshadweep Islands, you cannot have get lands here. It is a protective island. The Piti Island, which is an uninhabited island, is also known, given to the bird sanctuary. So there are many migratory birds which they reside in their Piti Island. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands are the bigger in size and more numerous in numbers, and the entire group of island, or the entire archipelago of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, are divided into two broad categories, that is Andaman in the north and Nicobar in the south. It is divided in the island is in it is actually coming out of, in jetting out of the ocean as a submarine mountain. So it is a submarine mountain which is rising from the ocean basin, so it is elevating. Whereas Lakshadweep island is predominantly a coral island. Okay, so these island groups are greater in height and strategic importance for the country also. Why? Because it is in the way of international trade route, so it has a greater military and strategic point of islands. There are some facts about the islands in India. That is, India has all 247 islands, out of which 404 lies in the Bay of Bengal, and rest falls in the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Mannar. That is, these islands comes in that region. And what happens in these islands are, some of these islands are also uninhabited by the modern human beings. There is a Centennial Island which is there in Lakshadweep, which is given to the Centennial tribes, and no outside communication is done to the Centennial Islands, because it is a tribal region, and the people of that region is known to be the what do you call are not ready to mix up with the modern region. Okay, so they are also protected what do you call tribal people, which is residing in the Centennial Islands. Okay, now covering all together, the Deccan passes separate Little Andaman from the South Andaman. And there are 204 small islands, and 19 islands are the largest. So this is a beautiful picture of the the large archipelago islands that we have in our country. And with this, I conclude my lecture, that we have completed the entire range of uh, uh, the physical features that are available in our country. Taking from the north, we have Himalayas, the great Indian plains. Then we have, in the west we have desert. In the center we have the Central Highlands and Deccan Plateau, composed of three parts, that is Central Highland, Deccan Plateau, and Chota Nagpur Plateau. Then in the west, Western Peninsula, we have Western Ghats and Western coastal plains. In the eastern part, we have Eastern Ghats and Eastern Coast. And the southernmost part of the country has two archipelago of island, that is Lakshadweep Island, predominant of coral reefs and coral islands. And Andaman and Nicobar islands are predominant with, it is a rising of like a mountain range which is coming out of the ocean, so it is a more higher in elevation compared to Lakshadweep. Okay, so that concludes our the entire physical features of our country. Now I would to the LMS and attempt your quiz. So there is a few questions given here for attempting the quiz. Have a nice day.